Here's Johnny! Don't! David Letterman!
Hi, David. I'm Grandpa.
Don't! I'm Mike Wallace, I'm Wally Schaefer, and I'm Ed Bradley. All this and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes!
Hey, howdy, hey, people of the internet. Here's Wolfman 47 Dash. Yeah, it doesn't quite work as well as it does in the actual film.
Here's Johnny.
So, today we're going to talk about the ending of The Shining, specifically the Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining. Now, as we all know, Stephen King is an author well known for bringing a lot of supernatural themes into his stories, often resulting in things like demonic clowns doing the dance, and people entering some kind of purgatory, a person having some kind of power that if abused she can use it, and yeah. It's all kind of supernatural stuff, but there's also some other things that are a bit more not as supernatural, like Shawshank Redemption, as an example. So we're going to talk about the ending of The Shining. As we all know, The Shining is one of those films that it's meant to be an adaptation of the book by Stephen King, but as we all know, it's one of those adaptations that pretty much goes against the book overall. Like, it just goes like Stephen King maybe gave it to Stanley Kubrick and he just threw it in the bin and created his own version of it, but still retaining some of the themes from the book. And one of the things that people often talk about and debate about is the whole thing about the ending. Now we know in the film, Jack Nicholson's character, let's just go with that. he is going to be this caretaker at the Overlook Hotel in an attempt to basically continue finishing the writing of his book. But ultimately, this leads to him going insane, mad, and everything, to the point where he's actually wanting to kill his family. Yeah, you can see where it's going from there. And as the film goes on, we get moments where he sort of hallucinates and seeing a bartender and all sorts of other things occur and so forth. And when we get to the ending of the film, where we see that photo frame of him appearing in the photo of that's stated quite some years ago, it begs the question: what actually happened in that film? Was he returning to a purgatory? Was he always there this whole time and everything? And it's one of these quests, and it's one of those big questions that has often had people guessing. It's one of those endings where nothing's actually bad about it. It's just one that people have questions about, that ultimately make it a bad ending because it just has questions that still needs raising. And I don't remember much from the sequel film / sequel book, Doctor Sleep, so I can't really add anything from that, I'm afraid, for this one. So I think my take on it is that Jack and the family were at the Overlook Hotel once, and then somehow their bodies left the hotel, but their souls didn't, and then the bodies return because he wants to go back on the writer block, but as it turns out, he's actually back, as in his body and soul have returned, and yeah, he becomes insane, goes over the top, does the "here's Johnny" thing and all that other stuff. And yeah, there's also the question about the guy that the child asks for help, because he appears as well, whether he was actually there or not, whether it's real or not, whether he was actually killed by Jack and all that, we don't know. But I will say a few things about the making of that film. You see, while most of you may not be familiar with Stanley Kubrick, I know there'll be much more of you that will be because of the way he creates his films. Now, some directors do take their filmmaking very seriously and often demand excellence and perfection in their films. And Stanley Kubrick is one of those people that demands perfection in his films to the point where he would go ahead and do as many takes of the same scene as possible and would not give a shit about what the actors or crew want. He just wants perfection. He just wants to get it perfect and right. And yeah, it ultimately does make some people not really want to work for him as much. And it's not the first time. I know. Even though some people have felt that this film's quite controversial in the sense that he does demand a lot of things from the actors and people that work for him, it's not the only time that this has happened where it's very obvious that actors and crew found it difficult to work for him. In fact, I know the person that played the wife of Jack in the film did actually retire from acting or went out of the spotlight after this film, and probably for good reason. It's not very clear what actually happened because there's sort of different conflicting accounts and so forth about what actually happened in the film. But the way I see it, she didn't really want to do any more acting after that because it took a toll on her mental health. And in fairness, I can kind of understand that completely. Back to the ending though, I think Jack's definitely with the hotel. It's a purgatory for him. His soul is there. He's remembering stuff, and he's probably was there before in another life and then came back without remembering much, and everything happened. And yeah. Yeah, there's not really much else I can really say. It's definitely an ending that's debatable. It's left questions, and unlike that ending from that one Planet of the Apes film that Tim Burton did, it's definitely an ending that people can find conclusions for and don't feel it's a complete and utter worst ending out there. It's just one that people like to theorize and question and just figure out what actually happened. I have not read the Stephen King book that it's, well, I'm just going to assume loosely based on, because let's face it, it's not actually based on the book or the whole book, let's face it. So yeah, that's what I think of the ending of The Shining. I think overall it's a good film. It's definitely an influential film. Would I say it counts as a horror? I don't know. It's more of a thriller than a horror with horror elements, and you could technically describe it as one of the early examples of what would eventually become A24 films, which are known for their art house sort of formulas and so forth. And it's films like The Shining that sort of give us an idea of what we can expect from films that A24 and other studios that do specialty films like Searchlight Pictures, Film 4 and all that would eventually make. So yeah, so I can't think of anything else to say. Check out the film if you want. It is definitely one of the few Stanley Kubrick films that's actually, on the whole, it's an alright film, but at the same time it's not without its controversy. Whether you want to believe in the controversy or not, up to you. It's conflicting with the accounts of what actually happened behind the scenes. So yeah, unlike another controversial film of Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, where it's pretty obvious where the controversy lies if you actually watch the film. It does kind of make sense, but we'll leave that for another video. So yeah, all right. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you next one. Peace to you all. And if you do decide to go to a hotel to be a caretaker and just be the only ones there, maybe don't do that if you have a history or know full well that you're going to go insane. Because let's face it, those of us that lived through COVID will know full well that it drove us insane. So yeah, maybe just don't do it, and just stay with your loved ones in a place that you can call home, that you know you're safe and all that. So yeah, all right, doodles. So as I was editing The Shining, this video, I realised that I didn't really talk much about its appearance in Ready Player One. So I'm going to talk briefly about that now. So as we all know, in Ready Player One, there was meant to be a scene where the gang go into this sort of Blade Runner scene, but because Blade Runner 2024, whatever it's called, was being made at the time, it was off limits. So Steven Spielberg decided to instead pay tribute to Stanley Kubrick by putting a Shining scene in its place, and it kind of makes more sense because in The Shining being in Ready Player One was the general idea was that it was meant to represent the creators sort of not being happy with his work, and the guy that created the Oasis was, just like with Stephen King, was not happy with his work. So it's kind of a little homage, but at the same time sort of ironic in that it's basically the same thing for him. So yeah, anyway, that's the only thing I wanted to really talk about. The whole sequence in that film is amazing because it got the film grain part down, and it did have the theme song in it, and it didn't go too far into the film because of age ratings and so forth. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Have a good day now, and don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and yada yada yada. So yeah, right. Toodles, for real this time.